Selena, Loretta,
Yeah.
you and her have gone back and forth. I got to know the backstory because I've seen it and I'm hearing the two of you, and there's the disdain between you two. What is the relationship with you two now, and has it gotten any
Yeah.
better?
Hell no, it's only getting worse.
I didn't think it was.
Oh no. It's one of those things where, like, when we were both just doing indie shows before I was signed with MLW, she was cool with me at shows. We talk once in a while. We have pictures together where we're just smiley, how you would be with an acquaintance or someone you just met. Like, there's nothing to hold against anyone. And then once I signed with MLW, she just had this attitude out of the gate. Like, whether we were filming an actual promo for them, she would just cut me off and say horrible things. When we're behind the scenes in the locker room, she'd be like, "Oh, you can't change in here. What are you talking about? Like, I'm the female of the locker room. I'm this, I'm that." Like, what the, like, whatever. So she's just always been a gigantic douche. So it's one of those things where we had a really big show coming up, and maybe 2 months ago, this happened, month and a half even. It's still fairly fresh, all of this, as far as being on
I
socials
saw the
go with
recent
it.
interview.
Yeah. So it's one of those things though where it just continues to grow and we continue to loathe one another, and she just isn't getting any better. And it got to the point where I was like, you know what, like, there has to be some respect deep down for me. Like, I have never done anything to her. I get if people don't like me, everyone's not going to love me, like, I don't give a shit. But it's like, I work with you, respect me in some way. And she just never showed it. So I was like, you know what, you want to play dirty, I'll play dirty. So now it just is what it is.
I
And
totally struck a nerve with Alicia, by the way. But you know what, though? I watched with the react, like, you had her on your show, and the way
Yeah.
she was towards you was so disrespectful to even just come on your show like that. It blew my mind. Like, we had Leo Rush on here a few weeks ago. I think Lyle asked Leo about ELP. And that clearly struck a nerve with Leo to the
Yeah.
sense where he basically he went off. So clearly we're the ones that strike the nerves in people, so we apologize.
It's all good. Hey, we put it out into the universe. Someone's gonna pick up on it. I always say, even though deep down I am frustrated all the time and annoyed and would just love to, like, beat the crap out of her, hey, if people are finding some entertainment in it, then at least there's some kind of positive light.
Exactly. So if it's buzz, it's good buzz. That's how I look at
Exactly.
it.
What first kicked off your idea for interviews with wrestlers as an influencer? What came to mind what questions come to mind when you put together these interviews?
Yeah, so honestly, the reason that I first decided to get into wrestling and interviewing wrestlers is because I would interview so many bands, and they would throw in these little wrestling nuances or phrases, like they'd Stone Cold What Me, or they'd act all crazy and go into, like, Macho Man voice. And they weren't trying to be belittling, but I think they were just doing it as an inside joke, and they didn't think I would understand it. So they would do something, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's so funny," like, out of nowhere or whatever. And I'd pick up on a Randy Orton thing, and they're like, "Wait, you know about that?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course. Like, who doesn't?" And then our interviews for music would go from talking about music to talking about wrestling, and we would just have so much fun doing that. So that opened my eyes simply to, oh my gosh, if these musicians like wrestling, wrestlers have got to love music. So why not just cross the two and do something completely unique and different? So that was mainly the main reason I went into that avenue, and now it's just, like, exploded. I never expected it to be what it is now. I went into it like, oh, I'll just interview people for my YouTube and that's it. And now it's hosting and all this craziness. But and then the influencer stuff I've been doing for a few years. It really started back in like 2017, 2016, where the biggest thing I did was BMW hired me to go to Coachella for a whole week and stay in LA and just do all this really cool stuff with them. And that opened my eyes, thinking, oh my gosh, if a company like that wants to hire me, I'm sure there are big ones and much smaller ones that want to work with me too. And so that's been really, really fun and different. And yeah, that's been just mind-blowing, some of the brands I've been able to work with. And yeah, and then I think the last thing was just questions. When it comes to those, I just really try to make my interviews different. I try to ask things people might not even think they want to know, but as soon as we start talking about it, they're like, wait, she's talking about this, like, super badass guy about barbecuing? Like, who would have thunk? Just like little nuggets that make them human beings instead of superstars, because being a superstar is awesome, but when you can really relate to someone on a human level, I find it's genuine and you just love them even more so. So that's kind of my favorite thing. And I always say I'm like a professional stalker. I will deep dive so hard into people's social medias to find anything I can that would be fun to talk about or different or just, like, amusing. So I've literally gone back like 4 years to someone's Twitter just to find something really good.